So I want to begin with a quote from Ernest Holmes, who founded the Centers for Spiritual Living. And he wrote, "Life is for us today. There'll be no change for tomorrow unless we do the changing today. Today is God's day, and we must extract from it what life we are meant to live." So he's saying that, it's done to us what we believe. And if we want to change our life, whether we don't like how it's going, or even if we love how it's going, and we just want it to be better in the future, we need to start making those changes and putting out into the universe something different today, so tomorrow is better. So I want to begin today with a story that's actually a true story. And it's about, it's told in a book titled Callings by the son of the person I'm going to talk to you about. So his dad, all his life, wanted to be a musician. That's what he thought he was called to be. But he never did what his heart wanted him to do. And instead, he worked in a store selling appliances. So for 35 years, when his heart was somewhere else, he sold washing machines and dryers and refrigerators and whatever else, TVs. And then one day, after 35 years, the owners of the store came to him and said, we've been in business all of these years, we're tired, and we're gonna close. And it was before the days of golden parachutes, etc., so he wasn't gonna get any kind of big pension. But they said to him, after 35 years, is there something here that you would like, as a memory, something that you would like to take with you? And it sounds a little strange, but again, it's a true story. He said, you know what I would really like? I'd like the chair that I sat in for the last 35 years. So they sold it to him. 35 years, Carol's heard this story before, 35 years, and all he asked for was his chair, and they made him pay for it. So what he did, he took the chair and he carried it to his son's house, and he put it in the living room of his son, and he said, I want you to make me a promise. I want you to promise me that you'll keep this chair here and you'll never sit in it. I want you to remember that over the course of your life, there are going to be people that want you to conform, that want you to comply, and that want you to compromise. Don't do it. And let this chair be a reminder to you not to do it. We believe that each of our lives on some level should be a work of art. And one of the things that distinguishes a work of art is it's unique, it's one of a kind. There's only one Mona Lisa, there's only one Sistine Chapel. And so each of us is here, I'm going to talk a little more about it later, but to create the life that we're called to live. And I read that somebody once asked Mozart, why do you create music? And his response was, because I have to. And so think about that. Is there something in your life that you have to do, that excites you, that brings you great joy? And what is that? So Barbara DeAngelis wrote a book called Real Moments, and we use it, we used to, I'm not sure if they still do because I haven't taught it in a while, we use that to train practitioners. It's one of the books that we use. And she talks in there about the fact that real moments come in our life when we allow our life to unfold as it should. That's what creates real moments. Moments when we're fully present, when we're fully aware, when we're fully alive. And she said, we spend so much of our life preparing for the future that we wind up not enjoying the present, and we postpone our happiness and our ability to experience joy. And she has a quote in here from Anonymous, and the quote is, "First I was dying to finish high school and start college, and then I was dying to finish college and start working, and then I was dying to marry and have children, and then I was dying for my children to grow old enough to go to school so I could return to work. And then I was dying to retire. And now I'm dying. And suddenly I realize I forgot to live." You know, we have a culture that values doing and not being. And in the book group on Thursday, we spent a lot of time talking about that we're doers rather than just being. And so Barbara DeAngelo says in the book, because of that, we're not good at creating real moments because we're not in the present moment. And we're more concerned, think about this in our society, we're much more concerned with quantity than with quality. And we judge people, we judge one another on what they've accomplished rather than who they are. And you know, some examples are bigger is better, all you can eat, more for your money, new and improved. We worship speed. We want a lot and we want it now. And we hold consumption and accomplishments as the way to happiness. And yet, when you look around, there are so many people that are unhappy because they've come to a spiritual dead end because they're chasing the wrong thing. And last night, Jenna, Becky, and I had a conversation about this. Barbara DeAngelis has on a mirror in her home, she's this: "When will I know I have enough? And what will I do then? When will I know I have enough? And what will I do then?" Did you wanna? No?
Sure.
No, I was talking to Becky. We talked about it.
Well, I think it started a couple of years ago, and I would pray about downsizing, and I would come across through synchronicity these articles about living a minimalist life, and just, you know, downsizing, and, you know, eventually it happened to us this year. And
I don't like it.
I've come to realize that some of the things that were making me unhappy was striving for this, striving for that, and forgetting about doing things that I love, that bring me joy. And so that is where I'm at right now, is coming from a place of joy, coming from a place of loving the things that I want to do, and what means a lot, the quality.
So I think it's a really deep question. When will I know I have enough? And what will I do then? Think about that. So Eckhart Tolle says that let me just stop. One of the things I said to Becky this week, you know, I really read a lot to prepare these. And one of the things that was such an obvious, to me, so obvious that it went through everybody. Everybody talks about, if you want to know the kind of life you want to live, it's not out here. It comes from going within and finding what you're saying to yourself, what is there, and then bringing that out. And Tolle says that people believe that they're dependent on what happens to them for their happiness. And he said they're dependent on form. In unity and in religious science, we would say they're dependent on effects rather than the cause. They're dependent on what's out here. He uses the word effect. And Tolle says they miss going deeper and finding the joy and the perfection in life itself that's always there, that's always available to us. And he said that lies beyond what's happening out here. The joy of being can't come through what's out here. He said it happens from what's in here. And I saw this quote by Joseph Campbell this week, who said, people say that people say what we're all seeking is meaning for life. I don't think that's what we're really seeking. I think that what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, so that our experience on the purely physical plane will have resonance with our own innermost being and reality, so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. That doesn't come from stuff, you know? It comes from, not that stuff is necessarily bad, but that's not the goal. And that's not what's gonna bring us true joy and true happiness. You all know, you get a brand new car and you love the smell for a few weeks, and then after a while it's an old car, right? I tell that story. Once we both got brand new cars the same day. 5 cars later, for me, she still had the same car, and it ran great. So Wayne Muller wrote a book, I think it's called Being, Having, and Doing Enough, something like that. And in the book, he says, we've forgotten what enough is, that people are exhausted. They feel the pressures of everyday life and the responsibilities and the expectations, all out here stuff. And he said, so the question is, how do we reclaim a life of deep sufficiency? And he said, guess what? We do it from within. That enough is an inside job, a balance of spirit and life. And in order to have that, we need to be present to the present moment. We need to be fully aware and in the present moment. And then he asks an interesting question. He says, what is wealth? And what might wealth feel like? And he said, so imagine a feeling of peace. Imagine a feeling of really being safe. Imagine feeling pure joy. And he said, sounds a lot like heaven. And he said, when Jesus spoke about heaven in the Bible, he almost never talked about it as a place. He talked about it as a feeling of the heart, as a way of being lovingly awake. And then Wayne Muller talks about his son, Max. So Max is 15, and the family has just moved, and Max has little self-confidence. He doesn't like school, doesn't like his teachers, doesn't like his appearance, doesn't like his parents, and is generally a really unhappy kid. And he's just been diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorder. And Wayne realizes this one evening, once again, Max isn't going to do his homework. And so he goes down to yell at him. They're gonna have an argument, do your homework. And when he gets there, he says to Max, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. So If you don't want to do your homework, don't do your homework. If you don't want to go to school anymore, don't go to school anymore. He said to him, whatever you want to do it. And I will support you, but I'm not going to fight with you anymore. And he said shortly after that, Max failed and Max quit school. A couple of months after that, Max went and got his GED and enrolled in a community college. And he said now Max is 19, so it's 4 years after. And Max lives in India working with orphans, and he's learning Hindi, and doing volunteer work. And his point was that Max needed to find his own passion, to search for his own passion, and eventually he did. You know, and I just, as I was telling you that, I thought about this. I want to tell you two other things. My oldest grandson graduated high school a couple of years ago, and he when he graduated high school, he also had a year of college because he's a really smart kid. And then he decided not to go to college and to become an apprentice electrician. And I remember having discussions with my daughter about it and saying, you're gonna let him do that? And her response was very similar to Wayne Muller. She said, you know, he's 18 and I'm gonna let him do whatever he wants, and I'm gonna love him and support him in whatever he does until he finds out who he is. And just one other story along that line. We talked about this at the book group also on Thursday. One of my sons hated school. I mean, never did well. He actually got left back in kindergarten, which is hard to do. And, God, I hope he doesn't see this tape. And but it's true, he did. And he hated school, and he never did well in school, but he was always good with his hands. And in fact, when he was a little kid, before he could read, I was telling them the story in the book group, before he could read, I bought him something for Christmas that required being put together. And I am totally unmechanical. And so when I got all of these pieces and parts out, I was like totally like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I should have had the store do this. And I was, when I see like directions, you know, with all of these steps, that like totally overwhelms me. This little kid who was like 3 or 4 who couldn't read, this is honest to God, he looked at the directions because it had pictures, and he realized like Dad's really out of this, and he came up to me and he said, here Daddy, this piece goes here with this. And he actually gave me all of the pieces, and I put that thing together because he knew how to do it at 3 or 4. And me, as however old I was, like that, it would still be in pieces on the floor. But the other part of this story about finding who you are, at some point I said to my ex-wife, when Jeremy gets older, we need to search and find him a really good school, vocational school that he could go to learn a trade, because that's where he's at. And she looked at me and she said, oh no, we're not, he's going to Yale. Like he had as much shot of going to Yale as our dog did, you know, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean, he just wasn't gonna do it. And now he does construction work, and he just sent Becky and I a few months ago pictures of what he did, and he's so proud of what he does. And the point again is, you can't lay on somebody what their soul tells them they want to be, or they want to do, or how they want to live. It comes from within each of us. So I read another article by somebody who said, here's the $1 million question. How do you turn your life into one you find to be meaningful? And this person said they've done all kinds of research at different universities, University of Minnesota, I think, and University of Missouri, and they said you don't have to take a year-long sabbatical. You don't have to go to China to live with monks. It's not about learning ancient secrets or hidden truths that only some people have. What they found, it's about waking up to yourself. Waking up to yourself. It's realizing once again that the meaning you're searching for is right there within you, just waiting for recognition. And you don't need to make, I said this already, giant changes. You don't need to take a year-long sabbatical. You don't need to give away all of your possessions. You don't need to quit your job. All you need to do is to recognize your life and all the experiences that you have and appreciate what you go through. They found that you can pull meaning from experiences like chatting with friends, like bonding with your neighbors, like helping out in community. What you do is you give yourself a meaning to wake up every day. You give yourself a meaning to wake up every day. So think about this. Imagine one of your friends calls you up and says, in 20 minutes, the dream police are gonna be at your house. And anything that you have not written down is gonna disappear from your life. You've got 20 minutes to write down everything that is precious to you, everything that sustains you, everything you feel is essential to you, everything you think you can't live without. Just go home and think about that. 20 minutes. What would you write down? What would you write down? What is so important to you in your life that you can't live without it? Bet it's not going to be your house or your car. I did this once in a group and asked them to volunteer. And the first person to raise her hand, whose name I won't mention, said her computer, which totally screwed up everything that I wanted to hear from the class. I won't say who did that. But the Dalai Lama once said, happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. So, again, we have this gift that's unique to us, that only we can give. And if we don't give it, our particular gift is lost to the world. And if we know we have this gift, and for whatever reason we're not stepping up to do it, we become numb and passionless. Somebody once said, life begins where your comfort zone ends. So I want to end with a quote from Melody Beattie, who said, what if you knew for certain that everything we're worried about today will work out fine? What if you knew the future was going to be good and we would have an abundance of resources and guidance to handle whatever comes our way? What if we knew everything was okay and we didn't have to worry about a thing? What would we do then? We'd be free to let go and to enjoy life. So thank you for being here. God bless you. Have a great week.